You're listening to Musings with Morales, brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.
Welcome to Musings with Morales. Good evening, everybody. I'm Morales, and on behalf of Paco and myself, again, welcome to the podcast. We're going to have, true to the title of the show here, a bit of musings. It's kind of a special time, a point of reflection, and sometimes we forget to reflect on things. I think I'm one of the more guilty people in that regard, especially around wins, anniversaries, birthdays, things like this. I tend to be a little lax on that. I'm going to be reflecting a lot tonight, and one of the main things that I'm going to be reflecting on is 15 years since I started my first business. Took the biggest gamble, one of the biggest gambles, I guess. At the time, it was the biggest gamble of my life, and took a jump to owning a business and really quitting my job or firing my bosses or however you want to call it, and investing in myself. I had those that believed in me along the way, Paco Chaga being one of them, my wife Maria, my family. But yeah, I just really wanted to kind of reflect on these 15 years and share with you a little bit about the journey, why we started doing this, dialysis education, training technicians and nurses, but then, that's resulted into a broader way of transferring knowledge all the way into what we're doing here today. Dialysis Education Services is the sponsor of our podcast, and one of the major focuses that we have is to share this message about staying healthy, hopefully, taking care of yourself, taking care of the people around you, but then also understanding that there are consequences to not caring for yourself, specifically in regard to your kidney health and to kidney diseases, kidney failure even, resulting in the need for things like what I have grown up helping people with, hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis, and in the lucky cases, kidney transplants. So, it's we're going on 15 years. Actually, September of 2009, we started that business, and we're about to celebrate that 15-year mark. So looking forward to celebrating with all of you, really, including the guests that we've had here on Musings with Morales. But those of you who, who you are, you've supported the cause because there's really a passion and a purpose behind it, like why we're trying to transfer this knowledge to the workforce, but also to the general community. Look forward to an invite really soon to an offer to participate in that 15-year anniversary and continue to bring this message out to others. So I kind of wanted to share with you like how we really started. For those of you who don't know, and I think most of you probably who are with us would know the story that I grew up around a very close family member. It was my uncle who was on hemodialysis, and he had to do it at home. So very quickly, I learned how to assist him in those treatments, which I learned at a young age he needed to stay alive. His kidneys had failed in his early 20s, and I believe that was like around 1972 that his kidneys failed. I was born in 1977 and kind of born into a family that was just a normal thing, that a person that we loved and that, we had fun with, and we did stuff like fishing and trips and things like this, that every couple of days you had to get connected to this device, and we'd all sit around, in many occasions, just sit around and watch TV of reruns and stuff like this while he would get this treatment. So I want to say about mid to late 15-year-old, he asked me to start helping him with putting the needles in his arm, and I very quickly got used to that and started to do other things and assisting him with his treatment, like set up his machine and do different sort of tests. And that was all before graduating high school or even really thinking about what I want to do with my life. fast forward to graduating high school and then making those decisions on like college or finding some sort of job that was, maybe a waste of time or something that could be a career. I chose a different pathway, went into construction, never really thought about healthcare as what I should be doing. It was just something that I did for him. When I look back at that, like, when you think about that circumstance, like I never wanted to do healthcare. I just did it for him. And then at a certain point in my life, that exposure through necessity led to opportunity that I finally accepted for career and profession and, purpose. And when I think about the main two categories of what I've done in my life, I've worked hard with my hands and my back in construction, and then I've worked physically also in healthcare, not as much with my hands and my back, but helping people to live their lives to the fullest extent. And when somebody has kidney failure, it's a real interruption to their life. I saw that firsthand with my uncle, and eventually, when I finally accepted the calling of the profession, I saw that in my patients and how integral, how influential, how encouraging, how empowering I could be as this, at the time, young, I didn't have much between my ears outside of a lot of experience in life. There wasn't a lot of formal education there. I went through a tech training program just like the program that I own today, but the impact felt a lot bigger than what I had invested from the books, if that makes sense. How many of you out there that are with us are in the dialysis industry, in the healthcare industry, the nursing industry, delivering care? And I'm just curious at, the reward that you find, or maybe I should say not just the reward, but the opportunity you have to find reward in healthcare. Is it based off of what you found in books, or is it based off of what you found through experience? Again, eventually I went through a dialysis technician training program, formalized the education a bit, but that was 4 to 6 months long. The impact that I had on the few people that I worked with every day, which, if you guys don't know, dialysis technicians, it's a considered an entry-level position in dialysis facilities, but they actually perform a large portion of the laborious work in the facility. So as far as like meeting with people who are coming to dialysis facilities to get their treatment, greeting them, having some, I would call it like some small chit chat, but the individuals just come for a treatment, and trying to not just come out with probing questions that make them feel like they're only there for a procedure, but that they also have a relationship and a therapeutic, I caution myself to say friend, but like I'll admit it that in my career I felt like the patients were friends and family. I spent so much time with them. Now I know there's got to be a certain level of a barrier or boundary, I should say, better yet, to the type of relationships that we have with patients. But again, I'm just being very honest that my experiences on the floor with patients, it was something that I took home with me. That I thought about them when I would go home, about how they're doing, and hoping that they were able to manage their health to the best of their ability with the advices that they've been given during the treatment, and then more so that I was really paying attention to the way that I reinforced or that I carried messages and conduited messages from I would say like the leadership of the healthcare team, like the doctors and the nurses and the social workers and dietitians, to the patient, but then also back from patient up to those leaders of the healthcare team, because as a dialysis tech, I spent the most time with the patient, just like I did with my uncle. It was a very, close thing. Like when he was on his treatment, I sat there the whole time, put his needles in the beginning, set up his treatment, sat there the whole time, helped him with his, whatever he was drinking during treatment, his dinner, or his lunch or whatever. Usually it was dinner. Made sure that he had his remote control so he could, hit the reruns that he liked. He was saving them up on like TiVo and stuff like that. So it was a very companion-like interaction during a treatment. And when I went into the professional care setting, I felt the same way. I was like a companion to these people throughout the treatment that I felt like I made it a little bit more tolerable to have to sit there and go through, first of all, 4 hours sitting down in a chair, right? That's a tough thing. Just sitting there and then having to isolate kind of the movement or minimize the movement in your arm during treatment because they would have needles in their arm to pull the blood out, run it through a dialysis filter, and put it back in, right, after it had been cleansed. Sometimes they would get dehydrated, they would cramp, they would have blood pressure problems, things like this. So you were right there with them. And, a lot of times the treatment would run very smooth and there'd just be great conversations. And of course, I have tasks throughout the treatment that I've got to monitor the patient, not just initiate the treatment, but monitor, keep an eye on the machine parameters, but then also the patient status, how they're feeling, how they're looking compared to their baseline or how they came into the treatment. The relationship, like I said, it's so common and frequent that I got to know like the names of families, in some cases the actual family members. I got to know their hopes, their fears. A lot of times it would be needles because the needles in dialysis are really big, right? But I got to know their fears and my comfort with it. And I'll say this, guys, to everybody who's got a family member or a friend or a spouse or a partner or somebody that you're exposed to and you see on that frequency what they're going through. Like you may have a different level of empathy than most people out there. So I see it as, a grand opportunity for people who have experienced adversity with kidney health. If you're not sure about a career, if you're looking for a career, if you want to get in healthcare and you're looking for the right place to start, I believe dialysis technician is probably one of the top choices you should be looking at right now. Short courses, 4 to 6 months long. There are clock hours, certification courses that do require certification examination. But again, 4 to 6 months versus having to train for, a couple years or go through education as a couple years as a registered nurse plus prerequisites, right? Or any sort of licensure as a social worker or a dietitian or things like this. This is a nice stepping stone. This is a nice stepping stone to find out. Paco, I had a young man the other day and yes. My thoughts. No, it was a person that I had walked into the school and Sharon had said to me, oh, there's Morales, like these people were looking for me, right? And they had been recommended by a previous student. And it was a young guy. I want to say he's probably about 19 or 20, 21. He was 21. And he's with his mother, who I believe was a nurse, if I'm not mistaken. But like usually when somebody, a former student or an industry person recommends somebody to the dialysis program, that person ends up in the program. You know what I mean? Because it's like, hey, what's a dialysis tech? Only people who know, right? It's like it should be like, that should be the hashtag, right? Like, if you know, you know. Because not everybody knows what a dialysis tech is, right? But the people who do, and then they recommend people they usually kind of fill them in pretty well. That like, hey, I work 3 days a week, 12 hours a day, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And I work with the same people. So I can develop these really close relationships. And, sometimes it's great because it's somebody that I really identify well with. And other times that, I have difficulties in, managing the relationship because maybe they're difficult for me to identify with or understand, or vice versa. They don't understand me, or they have a bias or prejudice, or it can go both ways, right? So anyways, the young man, like he had already talked with Sharon and got all the information and from his family member. And he was like, I want to get in healthcare, but I'm not sure what I want to do.
Ooh.
and he's like, I wanted to do this, but it takes a long time, and I still want to do that. So I'm thinking, like, phlebotomy was one of the examples he threw out, and I mean, I had no problem in saying to him, like, if you don't know what you want to do, this is the perfect place, because you will find something that you could do forever. As a dialysis technician, you could find different ways to apply that tech certification, right? Paco, you've seen my progression. You've seen some of our guest progressions,
Yes.
right? They're techs and they're running the programs, right? They're, doing things with medical device manufacturing and usability and things like this. They're starting their own businesses, right? Techs, right? So I was like, this is the perfect place, because you could use this as dip your toes in the ocean, right?
Richard Van Der Plas is a perfect example, right? You are also a perfect example. But what our audience what they need to understand, you've talked about this, is the people that you expose yourself to will inspire you.
That's right.
Or create an epiphany in you with regard to the direction you want to take. But yeah, to get your foot in the door in the healthcare industry, the best route is being a dialysis tech.
Well, and I expanded on that to this young man and to his mother and said that, with phlebotomy, the people need their blood drawn. That's kind of what you get as far as the need. With a dialysis tech, right? Like, I had this opportunity to work with people. Mostly my opportunities were to work with people who were considered outpatient, and they were on Part B Medicare, right? So they're getting outpatient dialysis, meaning they're at home or in the nursing home, and they're in I hate using this word, but a stable enough status or condition to be transported or transport or drive themselves to the dialysis center, get their treatment, get their appointment, and then go home, right? That was my main experience.
Right.
In that experience, which is the majority of the experience out there as far as like exposure for dialysis tech, 90% of patients go to dialysis centers, right? We're starting to see care setting and things like this change quite a bit. To your point of exposure to other individuals, right? The same time, so, we're talking 15 years, right? And like, when I really think about it, and I'm only thinking about it here, guys, because like I knew that, we were going to muse tonight, just kind of let it roll. And I was like, well, we got 15 years coming up. September 28th, we're going to have a celebration. So we're going to,
Wow,
details,
congrats.
of course, all our, guests, and we're going to invite everybody, and details to come, guys. So September 28th will be the 15th anniversary. But thinking back, like, to the point of tech being kind of this great opportunity, right? I started as a tech, clinical, meaning working with the patients. I'm going to kind of give the quick and dirty, creating the interface between the device and the patient safely and effectively. That's what I did, right?
Yes.
Then I learned how to clean dialyzers. I actually did this thing called reuse. Some people out there might remember this one, reuse, where we would use the dialyzers over and over again. Hi, JJ, Nurse J, how are you? So they would use the dialyzers over and over. I did that for a while because I went through a stage where I just wanted to be in the back room and not be around people, so I did that. And then biomed, which is working on the devices. And that's just another pathway for a dialysis technician. Then water certification, right? I did that as well, dialysis water certification, because super important component to the job. But when in 2009, my experience was all that, plus I had taught for another school for a while, okay? Quite a while. Actually, a couple other schools. I took that leap, like super big gamble, I would say, with not much. I did have a bachelor's in business, but not much business exposure to open a business, right? And I don't know who told me it, or where because it's not like some big secret, like you said.
Yeah.
Put yourself around the right people. Like, they're gonna what did they say about like high performers?
Eventually, you're gonna by osmosis, you're gonna be one.
You're going to be a high performer. Like it increases like the work productivity or the outcome or output of the proximal workers
Right.
by up to 30%, a high performer, right? And then vice versa, a low performer, right?
It's like a rotten apple.
Drag you down.
Yeah.
Drag you down. So, you know, in thinking about 15 years ago, some of the things that I did, I guess that was about the time when I met Richard Van Der Plas, who was probably on one of our channels tonight, but he was just on with us last week. I started trying to meet people in the industry, and we call that networking, right? You got to put yourself out there around the people that are like-minded, or I think that's the right way to say it, like-minded, because sometimes it's not always like, is it always like, hey, if you want to be a millionaire, billionaire, you want to be successful, do you have to be around somebody who's successful, or do you have to be around somebody who's shooting for that?
It's easier. Good question. You wanna, at the bare minimum, you wanna be around someone who's shooting for that.
Yeah.
Bare minimum.
Yeah.
But if you want to 10x your journey, you want to be around millionaires and billionaires because that's mentorship.
Yeah. So it's exponential. It's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like taking the, find the what do you call that? The what do they call that on Mount Everest? Take the line, follow the line, basically,
Yes.
right? Follow the line of somebody who already climbed the mountain.
There's a template. There's a path, right?
There's a template. Yeah, great way to say it. So started networking, and we got a few good shows coming up. I started going to conventions, right?
Yep.
Nephrology conventions. California Dialysis Council was one of them that I just went to all the time, still do. Went to different national conventions and still do that today. But I want to like kind of tap into that a little bit. When I would go to those conventions, there were, I would say, on average, two type of attendees.
Okay. You've taken me to one of those
Yeah.
conventions in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
I remember.
I would say on average there was two type, and maybe some of you online, you go to professional conferences, you can tell me, how it is in your industry, or maybe you're in dialysis. And here's the way I saw it: was there were people that their company paid for them to come, right? Mm-hmm. And then there were the people that were the company that was paying for them. So like, some of the owners and stuff like this, right? I didn't see too many people that actually came out of their own pocket
Who were there?
and said, no, I didn't get sent here from a big company or my company. I came because I wanted to learn more, right? And I'm not like saying that I was any different there, but what I'll say is, again, that gamble that I took, that was part of it, was to invest in being around the people that I knew had the right mindset, that they were in the profession because it meant something to them,
Right.
because they realized that what they do means something to other people. So, starting the school had a very personal purpose for me, right? But everything that I did had a lot of personal purpose as well. Going out and investing, a couple $100 for registration, and a couple $100 per night in the hotel room, and then, of course, you do the hanging out with everybody, so you spend a few $100s throughout these days, stuff like that. I did all that when I didn't really have. I didn't have anything to do it with. It was literally like playing with what's left.
Right.
In the bank account or the
And
pocket.
and when you started Dialysis Education Services, that's where you were really at. Remember that story you told
Yeah.
me?
Oh, yeah.
Like you were like, it was make or break for you. Like what Elon Musk did with SpaceX and Tesla. That was his last billion or whatever.
Yeah. So, thinking about the dialysis tech path. I actually wrote an article years ago in one of the nephrology journals, and it was something along the lines of how to climb the dialysis tech career ladder, right? Which has been actually almost non-existent in most organizations up until pretty recently. There are some pretty good models out there for techs to start at a certain place and take different sort of steps to advance their responsibilities and, of course, their income as well, right? And by the way, let me ask that question to you all guys, to all of you guys. If there's a career ladder, right, and there's a rubric.
Explain that. We know what a rubric is, like the bullet points of what you need to take and what you need to hit. But can you explain that to other people who may not know what a rubric is?
Yeah. So, like, if you're in a class per se, like, there's the requirement. Like, you got to do this many assignments this week. You got to get this score. You got to participate in this many activities. These sort of things. So if there's a rubric that says, let's say it another way. If there's a job description, that's the way to say it. If there's a job description, guys, and like I hear this a lot. Is everybody wants more money. When you look at people and how they move from one company to another, that's very common actually in dialysis. When people move one company to another, quite often, that's the variable, or that's the factor, that's the influencer. It's like, well, I work at clinic ABC, but DEF will pay me 50 cents more. All right, that I don't know. Is that the biggest driver on why people go one place to another? Is it the money? I mean,
it's definitely the top up there, right? You know what they say? It's quicker for you to get a salary bump if you skip sideways.
Yeah, lateral. Yeah,
lateral.
I think that's 100% true. Like, when I look at even dialysis techs, I cannot, I can't hate, because I see people move around a lot, but they're moving their dollars around. And, I've seen some people move around pretty quickly after graduating from the program. Like, they're working with one company and, a few months later, they're over at another, but they had significant increase that, like, how can you argue with it, right?
Right.
Now, that's one side of things, guys. The dollar, I'm not going to argue that, hey, having a better paying job gives us opportunities that we wouldn't have with a lower paying job, right? But, I'm just curious if there's that job description and then that there's 5 layers and all 5 layers, none of those get the money that you want, right? Like, how do you get the money that you want? Like, what's everybody wants more money. But are you willing to work for the money, or are you worth the money? Are you different? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you have to understand not everybody is like you, because again,
why are you pointing the finger at me, man?
No, because
you know that I think this way, right?
and it's a good thing though, because if we go back to ground zero, and bring it back to our audience, if you were telling us a while ago how you invested in yourself, spending a few $100s here, a few $100s there. Mm-hmm. Since we're on the topic of Dialysis Education Services going 15 years,
yep,
people need to invest in themselves.
Absolutely.
The first thing they need to do is drive over or even pick up the phone.
Yeah.
For God's sake, pick up the phone, talk to Miss Sharon, or if Camila's here, or anybody here at the school, and see if this is for them. And then take another form of investment with time for them to actually come face to face. And then later on for them to find how much? $7,000 plus?
Yeah, $7,500.
$7,500? Mm-hmm. to get in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
I mean, let's talk about that. Like the Omars, how they've changed
Well,
the course of their lives.
I mean, compared to where we started 15 years ago, we haven't had much of a price increase, actually. I mean, it's moved with cost of living.
Yes.
But it's not outside the norm of what other institutions are charging. We're not like a high margin institution, but we pay the bills, right? When you look at, 2009, we just had a real estate bust, right? And people were cashing out their 401ks, and it was a different time. I got to tell you, like, people, when they were looking for schools, they were looking for schools to sign up to. And, you know, maybe I'm going to start a rant here from myself or from any of you, but a lot of commentation over the years has influenced the type of interaction that schools have with consumers. Let me ask this question, guys. What is debt forgiveness like? What is that bred in your way of thinking about education? And I'll just give you a preface to this, that a lot of folks that are looking for vocational education today, compared to when we started 15 years ago, are looking for it to be paid for in a different way.
Right.
So any comment on that? And I got to say that the workforce today actually almost demands this. You know, for those of you who are employing dialysis technicians, and let's face it, nurses as well, because there's such a shortage, like there's got to be a way to get people in the industry that meets today's needs. And there's got to be a way to deliver or transfer knowledge that meets today's needs. I heard something recently, I can't remember who was talking about it, but the attention span of, individuals today, and how we actually look at and how we actually access knowledge to transfer and use. You know, things like online learning, things like apps or applications, and then creative ways of paying for education are actually necessary. So what do you guys think of when you think of vocational education or education today? Who pays for it? Is it the responsibility of mom and dad, like it used to be, like, hey, I got to send my kid to college, right? I got to save up, I'm not going to go to play darts or play pool, or, I'm going to cut back on my beer drinking or whatever. Like, I remember these days, right? I'm going to cut back on my beer drinking so I can save $12 a week or whatever it is. Do you guys still think that way? Or is it more that, hey, everything that my kid needs for their education, the government should pay for? Curious. Can anybody opine on that on any of our channels? Facebook,
Instagram,
LinkedIn, Instagram, which I still can't see, Paco, so you have to let me know if anybody chimes in there.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, but
there you
seriously,
go.
I mean,
I see us.
you see us?
Yeah.
Okay.
I see us. Yeah.
You know what? Seriously, like, I think regardless of who's paying, the individual needs to be motivated, self-motivated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, like, if you don't have any money, and my mom and dad do not have any money, maybe my uncle or my aunt or my parents, my friend's parents or my parents' friends
Yeah.
can sponsor me because they
True.
see that I really want to do this to change my life,
Yeah.
right?
That used to be very common, actually. We'd see, and I'd say we still do. Talking about who this means a lot to. Over the years, we've seen a lot of people come through the program that were patients in the past. Maybe they're transplant recipients now, or they're on home hemodialysis, or they had family members, things like this. And we tend to see those individuals, they'll send their cousin next, their uncle next, their 5 or 6 people down the line.
Right.
And Richard's agreeing with have to invest in yourself 100%. He says tell the story from back in the day, and I'm going to guess I know the story, but it kind of goes to that to me, Richard, if I'm thinking about the story of kind of trying to bang down the door like I was a crack addict to a dialysis organization, right? I was actually thinking about this today as I think about the last 15 years. Besides business, there's been a lot that's happened in my life, and there are stories that are not my stories that need to be told still, and again, I can't tell them because they're not my stories, but there are moments in our life where sometimes by our own hands we create pain or trouble for ourselves, right? And when you look back at especially the pain, right? The pain will probably still hurt when you look back at it.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to have a different way of dealing with it, right? But sometimes just getting past or getting through that time makes you so much stronger, right? So when I think about the story that hopefully I'm getting this right, Richard, is I believed in myself, from day number one of starting a business. And you don't need to start a business to believe in yourself, guys. Like you should believe in yourself, from day number one. Hopefully,
Amen.
Your parents instilled to you that you're strong and you're capable and you're able, and they put enough resilience in you to make you say that I'm going to get through it. No matter what, whether it's me with this person, whether I have a team or whether I'm alone, that I'll get through it, right? But I believed in myself from day number one, and I had been trying to make my way into different organizations to help the organization to find our students. Why? Because the patients that the organizations dialyze need the best. That's what I felt. It wasn't a thing of like, hey, I need you to open the door so that I can run my business. The way I thought about it from, me, Paco, the way I thought about it was like, you need the best people in these clinics because your patients deserve it. That's the way I felt.
And let's go back, like what you said earlier on at the start of this podcast. You grew up with your uncle being on dialysis. Mm-hmm. And so it's very personal to you.
Yeah.
Which is why you're there knocking on doors, letting them know that you need the best dialysis techs.
Yeah.
And there you are, setting up a school. Well, you set up the school to actually develop good dialysis techs.
Yep.
To give to these places so that they could give the quality of care that you believe they ought to be giving because it's personal to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so yeah, we've got at least, I don't know, probably 50 hours or so of, maybe more than that, double that, maybe 70
yes,
hours.
Sir.
70 hours of content here. And when you look back at that, you're going to hear over and over from many of our guests who were either family members or patients themselves, that every person that you're taking care of is like somebody's mom, grandma. Probably remember the video we did years ago. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to, let's drop.
You want to watch it?
Yeah, I want to drop that in, man. Like I just love this part. I think you and JJ drafted it up with this collage or this montage of people, right? And it had, I want to say, really attractive people. When I say attractive, like these were not like models and stuff, guys. They were just people that looked like, family. Like it flashed through, babies and grandmas and grandpas and, firemen and stuff like this. And kidney disease affects everybody, right? Like we all know somebody who is either already affected with it or at super high risk, or maybe if we're, on the unlucky side, we've already experienced the loss of our loved ones as a result of complications of kidney failure. So it affects everybody. And, I just love that, from day number one, that's been the focus. Like I said, Richard, like if we're talking about the same thing, I was so passionate about like, hey, and guys, for those of you out there who know dialysis, from 15 years ago and today, which I don't teach the classes anymore. Maybe on rare occasion I'll do some fill-in or some, more like motivational mentorship type of stuff. But 15 years ago, there was no better place from day number one to become a dialysis technician than Dialysis Education Services. There was no better place. I knew that. And today, 15 years later, I know that. And it's the same conviction. It's not any different, except for now I can say we've been here 15 years, guys, and we've become truly a thread in the fabric of dialysis, especially here on a local level in California. If you were to go into most of the facilities around Bellflower, Long Beach, Lakewood, Los Angeles, you will find students of Dialysis Education Services. You will find people who are running the facilities, people who started as techs and now are registered nurses or clinical coordinators or facility administrators or nurse practitioners. Those are providers. They have similar responsibilities to physicians. So I went to this organization and I wanted to get through the door, and my good friend today, Richard Van Der Plas, was on the other side of the door. Yeah, so I went knocking on this door of this organization, and of course somebody had to answer the door, right? And the person who answered the door really kind of wanted all the information, and I was just like, hey, I got the stuff, right? I got the stuff. Come on, let me in. Let me get to this guy. And I can't remember how thick I laid it on. Richard, maybe you can let us know how thick I laid it on, because I really can't remember. But I think it was just that high intensity passion that I need to get in to talk to this guy, because you need the best dialysis technicians possible to take care of your precious patients. So I believe that solidly. In the end of the, I guess, that transaction or that encounter, I laid it on thick on Richard. I ended up basically from an organization, don't talk to that guy. He's trouble, right? We don't want to deal with him. And actually, I never did any business with that organization even till this day. But I can say that I developed a strong friendship with somebody who I consider he'll always give me the real version of the story, or he'll always give me what he sees through his lens, with all honesty. And not to say that he's not also open to, in some cases, having an explanation given to him, right? But there was just this tenacity, guys, that I had to get our students in front of organizations. And I still have the same tenacity today. But, Richard, you've seen this? Yeah, so Ruben was number one, was the patience and empathy, was number one as well. So Ruben came from our organization, or through our program, I want to say 14 years ago, out of a construction journey, and he's had a good career since then. I've heard a lot of great things about him. He's taken care of actually some people that are kind of peripheral family. What's the right word to say that? Not in-laws, but peripheral family. So yeah, that was the passion, guys. I just really wanted to get in there. So when you compare then to today, 15 years ago, trying to get students into organizations, I'm going to tell a story that it was a learning lesson, to get students into clinics, to get the best technicians before the patients, or give them the opportunity to get into these transitional roles as interns, right, or externs, or kind of used synonymously in some cases, but under rotational hours. It used to be super hard. I couldn't talk to Richard. that conversation was not that urgent at that time for him to make it a priority, which I don't know if he ever got my message, because I probably knocked on the door too hard and already had security called on me. Not literally, but it just wasn't going to get let in, right? If we talk today, guys, it's night and day. We have agreements with the largest dialysis organizations in the world and in the country to be able to send dialysis technician interns to any state in the country.
Right.
So, I mean, what we were doing before is we were looking for 1 or 2 clinics back when I first met you, Paco. When I was knocking on Richard's company door, we're just looking for a place close to here that we could send students for rotations. Today we have the basically, 6,000 plus facilities that we could send students to. And then here in California, we've got most of the local independent facilities on agreement as well. So we've got really good reach in that regard and really high employment rates as a result of those agreements. So people come out of the school, go into a clinical rotation, get the actual exposure to the role, go through tasks that they're going to be doing in the role, and get checked off for competency, take their certification exams, and then find position typically in the company that they did an internship with. So Richard says that we'll tell the whole story on the future podcast. And by the way, that'll be the first time I heard the whole story too, because there were certain things that I never heard. We've done a few, I don't know if we'd call them commercial or just ads, Paco, over the years. I actually really look forward to sharing the very first one. Me and Paco did a little commercial, and it was just like, hey, you started a business, you gotta tell people about it, and we were really focused on trying to get the word out to the Filipino community. We were doing some advertisement in some Filipino newspaper or magazines, and we did a little ad here thing. But it was I think I was significantly lighter and had a thicker head of hair, or I had some hair, I guess you would say at that time. Just as awkward on camera, maybe a little more today than then because I'm older, but it was an interesting experience. And we shot a few other ads that didn't have so much of me, but kind of highlighted some of the students in the program, got some firsthand voice from them on what they thought about patient care and the importance of, the skills that they had learned in the school. So looking forward to hearing from more of you. Like I said, we're celebrating 15 years of training and educating dialysis technicians. Yeah, so okay, we're gonna play one of those old videos. Go ahead, Paco.
The truth is, end-stage renal disease can happen to anyone at any age. And as you get older, your chances of getting ESRD are greater.
I mean, it could be anybody. It could be me. It could be an elderly person. It could be a baby. It could be many of us have high risk factors because of our ethnicities. Like I said, it can affect everybody, and I was able to just really see myself in the patients that I was taking care of.
Until it directly affects our loved ones, or even us, we seldom pay attention to the quality of care.
Would you trust the people that you work side by side with to take care of you, to take care of your mom, your dad, your little boy, somebody that you love? And from there I would ask, how can we change that? There are people out there who they're salvageable, and then there are also a new breed of technicians.
Would you you be able to tell the difference?
I would say it's not written on the wall. I mean, it's not a book cover. It's something that you would really have to experience the care from that person. Obviously, as I said, there are many people out there who haven't had that built into their education, actually. That there is a person just like you sitting in that chair. There is a person that's scared, that a needle hurts.
It is important for every dialysis technician in training to immerse themselves in clinical and practical studies and to learn from faculty members who are also working in their respective medical fields.
We have a dietitian and a diabetes educator to not only help us to understand the main cause of renal failure, which is diabetes, but also to understand the specifics and the difficulties that a patient would have adhering to a new diet, basically, as their kidneys have failed.
Care. How important is it?
Many technicians out there are operating from the neck down and without a heart. We used to all be called patient care technicians, and a few states had some certification requirements, decided to call the technicians certified hemodialysis technicians, or CHT. And I think a lot of technicians really clung on to that title, certified hemodialysis technician. And honestly, I believe that with the loss of that PCT, we've also lost a lot of the care. Our students are ready to deliver care. Oh, this is going to be great. Gotta tell you. Yeah, man. Yes, thank you. Man, this is going to be good. So
JJ Buencamino, who's watching, actually said, "Wow, throwback."
Whose voice is that?
That was JJ's voice.
No, I'm just kidding. So I don't know if Richard's on with us, but I'm just waiting for his response there. So 15 years ago, man, background story. 2008, I believe, we had a mandate for everybody to become certified. Who's got you?
What?
I see you chuckling at something.
No, JJ was like, Mike looked like a baby.
Yeah, I was a baby, man. Like, so there had at a certain point.
Sorry, I'm sorry. It's still JJ. He wants the video updated. He'll do a better job.
All right, man. We're ready. We're ready. And some things have changed. So one thing that's definitely part of the controversy of 15 years and part of the I guess the challenges that the profession has had is I used to live right up the street from this studio. And in 2007 or 8, there was like knowledge that all the technicians across the country would have to get certified. Prior to that, they didn't have to get certified. They could get trained in a facility, get signed off from their medical director, and they'd be working. With the exception of California, that had been certifying technicians from the state level since 1982. But it became a national mandate, and you had to meet the Medicare requirements.
Right.
I think it was 2007 or 8 we started this journey, and then like around 2010, everybody had to be certified. Everybody in California was failing the test. And I lived right up the street. I opened my garage, and every weekend we'd have 30 or 40 technicians in my garage. We'd be barbecuing, and we'd be doing review sessions. From that, facility administrators got to know my name, right? Oh, Morales is the guy who has the reviews in his garage. And, I'm not sure if this young lady watches our podcast, but I would definitely some of you would know her. One of the very first people who I'll say had my back, Paco, on the industry side. Filipina lady. Go figure, right? Like there just seems to be this common theme in my life of
You're surrounded
yeah.
with adobo.
True. So, I don't know. There was more than a dozen people from her clinic that came to my garage and barbecued and had their reviews and then passed their tests like no problem. Matter of fact, the young man that I talked about the other day, or that came by the other day,
Filipino?
He's a Filipino guy, but the guy who was his family member was telling him he studied with me in the review. That's the only way I knew him. He was like, man, you helped me and so many people. He just messaged me this couple days ago. But this young lady, her name's Delia Benosa. She was administrator of some local facilities here, big organization, helped a lot of people in her organization, and she knew that I was in the process of applying to the state to start the school. And she said, when you do that, I'll make sure you get internships, with my site will be number one.
There you go.
She kept to her promise, right? We got a agreement with her organization, started sending interns there, and I think that very first year we sent like 40 people that got hired in the single organization. You know, now I would say this today it's good to get 40 people enrolled because it's hard to get people to pay for their education.
Why?
You know?
Why?
Yeah, man. I'm not sure. Like, I don't want to be too invasive or abrasive about my experience, but I'll share a little bit, and maybe somebody else can do the abrasive part for me.
Okay. Where's Richard when you need him?
Well, he's there. I see. Okay, let me step back from the enrollment first for a second. So, I've been in the opportunity to be a hiring manager on quite a few occasions over these 15 years as well, in different sort of roles that I've taken outside of owning a business. Mm-hmm. And I want to say right about, post first wave COVID, I started having a really hard time hiring people because of the work ethic. Because the work ethic was an ethic of entitlement rather than service. That, like that entitlement was trumping the service side of things. Like I said, if you meet the job description, that's great. You know what I'm saying, Paco? Like,
yeah.
Guys, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you meet the job description, great.
Sure, why not?
Great, yeah. You got a C? Good. Like, I don't want the doctor, I don't want the nurse that gets those grades or that just made it through, right? I don't want the employee
How about
just
this?
made it through and just does the job description.
I'm going to do some abrasiveness.
Okay.
During the pandemic, there are a lot of healthcare, quote unquote, professional fresh grads that did not go through clinicals.
That's right. That is right.
They were fast tracked because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And they are in the workforce right now.
I can't, and I said post first wave for a reason, because I actually, let's go back again. Like, okay, what is this giving me opportunity for? This is not the pathway of every technician, but by being a technician, doing it good, showing up on time every time, getting recognized for that, and then getting the opportunities that you get with the, what do you call it, extra mile?
Yeah.
Right? You want to get paid more, but are you willing to do more to get paid? Or are you willing to do more than what you're getting paid for? I've always had that mentality. I love people who have that mentality.
Right.
I want to grow. I want to hire with people who have that mentality as well, right? So, I've seen that ethic change quite a bit as a hiring manager. Now, when I think about the entitled. And by the way, California is a tough state to be a hiring manager, right? For those of you who have hired people, or on the other side of it, fired people, California HR laws and things like this make it very, very, you want to hire the right people so you don't have to fire them, because when you fire them, there's,
Oh, yeah.
if there's any problem, you're probably on the losing end of it, huh, guys?
Yeah, pro-employee.
Yeah, it's just, and that's good, and it's got its positive and it's got its negatives, right? To hopefully prevent any sort of abuse from the employer, or abuse of power from the employer. But then at the same time, when you put the lens of a business owner or a hiring manager, it can make things very one-sided, unilateral as far as the outcomes, right?
Yep.
So when I think about, like, okay, your question was, why is it harder to get people to pay today? I cannot tell you, Paco, how most people, like, there are ads from the school, right? They will say, there's a class available on this day, and it's this much, and blah, 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 blah. These are requirements, stuff like this, right? And I shouldn't say most, but quite a few of those lead transactions, or those lead interactions, I should say, are, oh, it's not free. I can do this other thing for free, right? And by the way, I'm not sure, but it does seem like there's a lot more people that inquire about the role that don't have high school diplomas compared to 15 years ago. So hey, can anybody speak to that? Are high school graduation rates going down?
Like the GED, kind of?
Yeah, even GEDs, like most people lack, not most, but a lot of people lacking even the GED.
And they want to be in a professional environment,
Yeah.
and be responsible for another person's life.
Yeah.
You mean like Uber?
Yeah. So I think Richard's asking for the link, if you would be able to. It's the same one that you had before, Richard. If you're able to find, just look up eCam link. And if not, Paco, you have his email?
Maybe we do, yeah. Paco sent me the link again.
Yeah. So we find a lot of folks that's the answer is, they want to find some sort of subsidy for their education. Curious how you all feel about that. I mean, I'll give you my personal experience, maybe out of ignorance, but I never had a student loan. I'm a graduate level education, master's in health administration and education, bachelor's in business. And I pulled out of my pocket the whole way, even in times, Paco, where the pocket was kind of light, maybe took a little bit longer in my undergraduate studies because of some of those financial constraints that I had. But how do y'all feel about that? That, maybe that the ethic is changing towards, wanting all education and, the investment in oneself to come from the government? I mean, I think there are definitely use cases for that. I'll give you an example, guys. So we're kind of close to an organization that works with foster care. And at a certain point, a lot of individuals in that system, they turn adult. And they don't necessarily get just thrown out like, hey, you're an adult, go deal with yourself, figure it out. These organizations may help them, assist them financially even. Some of the soft skills, customer service and hospitality and things like this, resume production, interview skills. They may help them with that. And then they may point them in the direction of vocational training or trade schools. Go be, you can be a welder. Here's a resource for it. You can be an iron worker. There's the local union where you can apply for an apprenticeship. You're interested in healthcare. Here's a place where you can go dip your toe in the water. It's a great starting profession with actual skills, right, that apply to multiple care settings and care disciplines. So I think we're going to have our buddy Richard Van Der Plas join us. Seems like something may have triggered his interest here. If you all wouldn't mind, let us know who's with us tonight. Just chime into whichever platform you're on. Let us know that you're with us. And if any of this is resonating with you, if you were a student with us, would love to hear from you, kind of what the journey has looked at like since you've graduated. If you've maybe been one of the folks that we've continued to work with and help to find opportunity beyond the initial entry pathway of becoming a dialysis technician. You know, we've had Omar on our podcast already, who's recently, after a little more than 10 years, become a facility administrator for a large organization. We've had different nurses that have been on, and there's our buddy Richard Van Der Plas. Hey, Richard.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you tonight?
It's your world. I'm just living in it.
So tell me, Richard, what triggered your interest tonight?
Oh, just we've had a lot of conversation about stories, and your stories resonate with me because we kind of have the same path. So just listening to your stuff, seeing what you're saying, and I'm always here. I like you, I want to give people our journey and let them know that they can do the same thing we've done. You're a business owner. I'm a business owner, but I also, grew up as a technician, just like you did with your uncle. Mine was with my dad.
Yep.
A lot of people, probably your channel already know, probably tired of seeing me, but I've made it all the way up to vice president and some ownership, and after the 43 years. So
I mean, tell me, Richard, like, when I think about especially the generation of today, and we're talking about ethic and stuff, like there's a big focus on kind of, and a lot of times it's like, hey, look at Richard Van Der Plas.
hold on, I lost you. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Let you get back on here.
Maybe I got to leave these in.
Probably. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Yeah. So I think it's, if let's say we end up at a professional conference, right? And I'm new to the industry, so I'll just call young to the industry, not necessarily young in years, but young to the industry. And then I have these aspirations, like I'm a tech, right? I want to see growth in my future. Oh, wow. Like right now, I just started being a tech, and they gave me $23, $25 an hour, whatever it was. And they, I get overtime every day, and I got a good benefits package and stuff like that. But man, I could be like Richard Van Der Plas, and I bet he makes, whatever that it is in my mind, right? Actually, actually I see him, he sits at that table and he buys everybody dinner. Like I want to be like that one day, right? That's what we see, isn't it? Like if we're young in the industry, or maybe a lot of people in today's workforce, like what they see, what they aspire for, a lot of times comes from stuff like this, right? What they're scrolling through on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, what they're scrolling through, and they see this like, oh, wow, you could, if you become a CRNA, you could make $400,000 a year, right? If you start as a tech, you could be like Richard, and you could have partial ownership in companies, and you could have managed hundreds of facilities and started hundreds of facilities and hired thousands of people. So they kind of want like, I want that now. So tell me about like, is that how it goes, Richard?
No, I tell everybody all the time. I said I started. There was times I had to take 2 steps back to learn something new. But something I knew that I learned helped me develop into another position.
Yeah. That
I took 2 steps forward, and then I take a step back. And look, this industry is about taking care of our patients. Mm-hmm. You can go from, like you said, a technician to biomed. You can repair equipment. You can learn water systems. You can learn all kinds of stuff. You can become a sales rep for a lot of the drug companies or the new companies that are developing technology in the system. But they want you to have dialysis experience, but that will elevate you. You just have to put in the time and the work.
Yeah.
And as long as you do that, you're going to actually be able to be successful in this industry. But look, you're not born with a golden spoon in your mouth. You have to put in the work.
Yeah. I mean, time and motion, time and work. You're right. It's the simplest thing, isn't it? Like,
well,
consistency.
I started in 1980. I was making $3.50 per hour as a technician. So.
And you were balling probably.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was going to school. I was 13 and a half, so I thought I was balling.
So what do you think about like a high school graduate today? You know, getting out of high school and they're responsible enough to go through studies. They're responsible enough to, like you said, show up and do the work. Like, what do you think about somebody 18 years old? Like, I want to be in healthcare. I don't really know what yet. This one seems, attractive to me. It's a short course type of thing. It's affordable. Is it a good place for somebody like that to start?
College is not for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't have a college degree.
Right.
I mean, you were talking about what you have.
Yeah.
You have a lot of the titles and worked hard for them. I don't have that, but
it didn't hold you back.
Figures a year. Yeah. No,
did not hold you back at all. Yeah, for sure.
I just kept working what I had to do. So, everything that you learn, you have to sometimes pay for what you learn. And it's worth taking the risk of a short class talented class. And what I was getting back to what you were saying earlier, and I don't know if you want to go down this road, but when we originally met, you were one of the few above the board licensed schools.
Yeah.
There was a lot of schools out there were a little sketchy.
Yeah.
And I won't get into who they are or whatever happened, but we had to
the state cleaned up shop, that's for sure.
Right. But we had to navigate that part of it. Like, you were giving the students what they needed in a licensed environment.
Yeah.
The other schools were doing stuff that was not up to par and should have been shut down a long time ago. And you had, along with you trying to sell your business, you had to fight that in the background because they were taking your students away at a cheaper rate.
Yeah.
But they weren't legal, licensed.
Yeah. No, you're right. So it's interesting. That's a really interesting point is back then there was about at least 20 schools in California, and most of them here in Southern California, right? Like right around our area. And a lot of them were operating out of compliance with the state and without approvals from different, because there are different levels, right? There's levels to this, man. We got like Department of Public Health and the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education. So there's like, are you qualified to train these people? And then are you operating at a level of ethics as far as your consumer interactions, right? That's all important. So you had to have both of those. And then we actually also have and have always had for the last 15 years a national approval from the Board of Nephrology as well. So we took like a 3-layer approach of the state, the Bureau of the Consumer Affairs stuff, and then the national certification entity as well to get like basically audit or survey process. So you're right, we had all of that, and I don't think I realized at that time that I was fighting that battle either. That I was actually fighting the battle of like, we've had bad experiences. We've had, shops that the students come back and sue us because the school disappeared, these sort of things, because that actually happened in some facilities. So I didn't know I was fighting that battle. Again, all I knew was, as you saw in the video, if you saw that whole thing, and I really want to ask you about that, because we get on this thing today, and since the certification of, we want the professional title now, and it's even been endorsed and, stamped by a lot of technician organization, right? specifically the National Association of Nephrology Technicians, to identify as the certification or certified nephrology technician. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Prior to that, and even still today, like, go look up certified hemodialysis technician on a job board and you won't find it, right? You'll find patient care technician, right? But did you see the little blurb in there? I was like, oh man, Richard's going to shit his pants.
No, I saw it, but you were young, and I'm going to let you get by with it because
All right.
I know you feel different now.
Yeah, no. So I think it's important to acknowledge this, guys, that, you know, if you're a technician, a dialysis technician, there was a time where they called you patient care technician, and that still is kind of some lingo out there, especially on the career boards. But this is a profession, you know. This is a certification that requires like minimum requirements of like high school diploma and a certain age. And matter of fact, if you guys don't know this, like in California, you actually have to provide a social security number to get certified. So it's that deep to even go into the right to work with that certification. So there's that. Then you have to go through a certain type of training, right? That is laid out by Medicare or Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Certain number of hours and topics of theory, and then a certain number of hours and like demonstration and return demonstration or clinical competency, as far as a checklist. So it's not just like, hey, come to work over here. And when we say that, like the level of the profession, the level of, I guess, requirement to the profession, I'll go back to kind of the investment on education again. You know, there are different sort of career and technical education pathway programs. I think you're familiar with these, Richard. You know, in high schools and things like this, right? Where you could basically come out of high school and you could be a medical assistant, right? You could come out of high school and be a CNA. You cannot come out of high school and be a dialysis technician right out of high school, because the high school diploma is part of that that requirement for certification, right? But I'm just curious to you, like, do you see a difference, Richard, or anybody that's with us, Ruben, you know, in what you learned or what we do as dialysis technicians and the expectation of an investment, whether it be in the time or the financial end of it? So thinking about you as a consumer, if I want to, in myself, I want to put money on myself to better myself with this sort of professional title, do you feel it is, you know, what should the mindset be? Should it be that I need to find a way to pay for this, or should I be thinking automatically, regardless of my financial? And that's and maybe that should be my point, guys, is we find that even people who are able to invest in themselves expect the government to do it. Does that make sense, Richard?
No, absolutely. But I also look back and say people find a way to buy a car.
Yeah.
People find a way to invest in something. And it's, you know, you have to invest in yourself and actually get the finances. And there's ways to do that. There's programs out there.
Yep.
I know you even have programs.
Yep.
But I'll even throw it back to you about something you said earlier, was why were all those people failing the test in your garage? What was the reason that these people were actually working and not being able to pass the test? Because, you know, back in the day, as you know, I wrote part of the test.
Yep.
And it wasn't that hard.
Yep.
So what is that part of it? And really, they need to go to a quality school.
Yeah.
Like your school, to learn and be able to pass the test, because your passing rates, I'm sure.
Yeah, they're
and
exceptional.
what I challenge you to do is to put out the numbers, put out how many graduates you have, how many people have been working, and I know we talked about this the other day about, you look at all the statistics and put those out and let people see what you do for people.
So actually, that's not even a choice. That consumer affairs that consumer affairs organization I talked about, if you go to any school's website, so hey, if you want to be a dialysis tech, you should go do it, guys. You definitely would be in the best hands at Dialysis Education Services, but you should go do it. And when you go do it, you should look at the institution. Those sort of things are important for any school, whether it's dialysis tech, whether you're going to be a CNA, an LVN, you should look at the outcomes of the school, right? If there's a school that, they're training 100 people, but only 20 of them are getting license or certification, only, 15 of them are getting jobs, that's probably not the right school for you. And every school is required to report. That's called a school performance fact sheet. They have to report the last 2 years of performance that are accepted and approved from the state. So every year we have to submit these reports, right? And, I'll just give kind of a quick and dirty. Our graduation and our certification rates are typically above 80%, and our employment rates are typically above 75%. So those are great numbers. I mean, 7 out of 10 people that come through this program within 6 months of graduation are working. And in today's environment in California, that's not a bad entry level,
No, but you need to highlight that. They're not going to look at your website. You need to put it out there, just like you're doing other stuff and showing how good of a job you do to get these people in the workforce that are actually doing great, service for our patients and lasting a long time and passing the test. And you need to go and advertise, because that's what the world's about. It's all about social media and putting it out there, because nobody's going to look for it.
As you're speaking about that, like there are outcomes that like we don't measure as well. So but you
have the data.
Well,
so
yeah, in sales, right? If you're in sales, that like you've got like referral sources, right? You know where your pipeline is coming from, and one of the biggest feeders for us is somebody else who came here. Those previous voices. That's really the biggest driver of enrollment for us. I had a unique experience, and over the years, especially in more recent years, we've started to see the children of our students come to the program now. So, mom came here 10 years ago, and now the kid is graduated high school, like we were just talking about earlier, young person coming in, and mom said, I should do this, right? And quite often that works out great. But, we're going through generations of people now. And I just got to say that one of the most memorable moments for me over the last 15 years is very, very recent, within the last year and a half. I think I shared it with you already, and I did share it on the cast, but a person I took care of actually in the organization I used to work with you at, her daughter ended up in our class, and it was just coincidence. She was looking to become a dialysis tech some years after her mom had passed away, because she had told her mom she was going to do that, and it's what she always wanted to do, and she finally found the means to do it. So first day of the class, I came to meet the class and introduce myself, and this young person told me that why they had started the class, and that their mother was a dialysis patient, and that she did dialysis at this center in between these years and these years. And I asked, like, no way, because I used to work there. And she threw the first name out, and I said the last name, and we were both like, holy shit. And we both, swell up with tears. And I remember that person when she was like 3, 4, 5 years of age, standing next to mom in the beginning or the end of the treatment. Man, I'll never forget that, Richard. Like, it was, I think it's probably the most memorable, because you know how it is. Like, you got people that you work with that they got this super special place in your heart, right? And that was this young person's mom for me. Like, out of all the patients in my years, I remember this young lady, scared out of her mind, kind of one of the people who you can't help but just like really feel sorry for or sympathy for, because it was so traumatic to her to get the needles, and when she would cramp and when she would get, you know, the dizziness and the sickness, it was really, really scary for her, because it was fresh in my time with her. So watching her break into all this, and then I talked about it earlier tonight, just the amount of responsibility that I felt and impact that I felt in that person's life from 4 to 6 months of school was something that I never could have imagined. And I just think it's beyond the reward that I expected, if that makes sense. Like,
Absolutely. I'm sure I told you this story too. Was I was chief administrative officer for a medium-sized dialysis company, and I walked in, and there was a patient that was there that I knew, and we'll just use Mr. Smith as the name. But I said, "Why aren't you on the machine yet? It's 9:30 in the morning." And he said, "Oh, well, a couple people have actually, called in sick, so they're short and people are running around." So I look around the room and everybody's busy. But I know that they would be way behind if this person didn't get on the machine. They needed to get started. They had a patient behind him and another patient behind him and so on and so forth. So, Mike, I hadn't stuck anybody in 7 years. I haven't even, so I just go grab a mask, I grab a gown, and his eyes were as big as circles, looking at me like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "I'm putting you on." And he said, "Well, why?" And I said, "Because I already know it's going to affect everybody's day, and I need to make sure that you're taken care of as a patient." And put him on the machine. Yeah, I was slow, but he had a fistula that was big as a canyon, so it wasn't going to be able to, miss, sticking him. But and the staff later on said, why did you do that? What was going on?" And I said, "You know what? I wouldn't ask you guys to do anything that I wouldn't do. And I treat all of these patients and all of their family members and everything else just what I want my dad to be treated, your uncle to be treated, everybody else that does. These are people that are families. We deal with some difficult patients. I mean, they're angry. Yeah. But we want their families, and like you said, me and you talked the other day. I had a staff member that was a CHT back in the day that actually, unfortunately, started on dialysis.
Yeah.
But we continued to treat him, and he treated at our center, but he was still working for me as a patient care technician or CHT back. It was back in the day, so it was patient care back then. But, and how I feel about that whole CHT thing. So
normally I was surprised you weren't like blowing up my phone when you heard the video. But yeah, that's again, guys, back to that professional thing is like there's been a lot of just advocacy and people standing up to say like, recognize us as a professional on the team by our title, not something that can be ambiguous to other types of disciplines that are similar to like CNA, from my understanding, like the patient care techs in other environments where they don't have like the specialty skills that a certified hemodialysis technician has. Do you agree with that, Richard?
Absolutely. I'm on the board of, I won't name the organization, but we're planning for a meeting next year. And one of the people that was the president of the organization had mentioned patient care technicians, and I just went off on the call. And she said, "Richard, I agree with you." And she was a nurse. She said, "But everybody recognizes them, the large dialysis organizations and the regs still say patient care technician."
Yeah.
And so she said, that's why she says that. And I said, we as a group, all of you technicians, you're not a patient care technician. There's so many industries that call their people that are running around in sniffs and other organizations that are patient care technicians. everybody in this country is a certified hemodialysis technician by some organization, and be proud of that. We fought for that for years.
Yep.
And I was the 101st technician in 1982. My certification was 101.
In California,
in California to be a patient care technician. But I'm proud that I wrote the test in California, part of it, and I'm proud to say I'm certified, and I will always say that, and I will fight till the end of the day, because it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. Anytime I hear patient care technician, I get mad. So
guys, let's kind of keep on the the technician as a dipping the toe in the water, or you can really kind of build your yacht as a technician. Richard's got one parked in front of his the pond in front of his house, right? But thinking about some of the challenges again over the last 15 years. From a vocational perspective. Now, there's internal training for dialysis technicians. I'll never hide that from people. Companies do hire people and train them from square number one, from A to Z. And you ask me the question, or you say, well, why were those people failing before? And I want to, get a chance to give my input based off, hearsay, if you will, like what was brought to me.
Well, you saw their failures. I mean, they were in your garage, and you could see what the shortcomings were. So
they'd come, to me after they failed because their administrator told them, hey, there's a guy in Bellflower that has got his garage going. You pay him this much, he'll cook for you, and he'll lecture at you all day till he can't talk, but you'll pass your test, right? So we reviewed like really, really hard. But some of the things that we saw out there in the field were there's actually, it's hard to find people to train new people. Like if you go to a clinic and say, hey, we want to send an intern to your clinic, so many people would say, I don't have anybody who should be training anybody. They can't even follow our policy and procedure.
I don't mean to cut you off, but part of that is, anybody that wants to train, they want extra money.
Well, that was my next point.
Yeah.
One is, are they qualified? Two, and that's where, kind of where I wanted to dig in a little bit is, if you ask me to train this new person, right away I ask you what?
Yeah. What? How much more money am I going to get? What is it? What's in it for me?
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, Richard, you know me a long time. Paco, you know me a long time too.
Yep.
And I'm going to ask the question and not set you up to answer the way I want you to ask. But do I ask for extra for doing extra? I'm really curious. Do I? Paco?
No. Matter of fact, one of the reasons I called you today was because I got a question from somebody else. I won't get into it because I was going to have to edit it out. But there's somebody that that continues to text and ask questions, and I never ask for more money. I'm willing to give the answers without. I just call it free consulting. I mean, it's really just
the same point. Is like the Richard, you kind of threw it out there. I don't know if anybody caught it, but you do well. You do well, and you've got a reputation in the industry as no disrespect, as a tech, but you just said like you don't have the college degrees and stuff to say like go to him because he's a doctorate in whatever, right? People go to you because you've been in the trenches. You've shown up, you've been consistent, right? But those calls that normally, cost in the hundreds of dollars per hour, you pick up a phone and you answer questions, right? And you know who to call too when you've got the same sort of consults, I'm sure. You call people that are $400, $500 an hour people, right?
Yeah, my going rate is just let everybody know it's $450 an hour. If they want to ask me about something, and recently I had not recently, it was probably maybe a year ago now, but a company in New York called me about dialysis chairs and what was important, and they paid me $450 an hour to talk about dialysis chairs. So there you go.
Well, I think that's one of those opportunities that you get with the time, right? And there's a lot of people out there that want to know from the user's end, from user, customer, decision maker, all those sort of angles, right? Patient angle, caretaker angle. There's a lot of ways to monetize that consistency and that experience of 5, 10, 15, 25. We've got friends that have been in, actually you're on 40, aren't you?
This June was 44.
44 years. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's incredible, right? And I mean, he started when he was a teenager.
Yeah, I'm 57. So yeah, I was 13. I started.
So I got to tell you that, like, I've always loved taking students, and I don't even need $1 more. I always loved it in my facility. One, I felt like I was very good and efficient about transferring knowledge, but two, it made my job so much easier. Like I was now, at first I was like 100%, right? I got to do 100%. And then it was like my job was kind of divided 90-10, right? Some of the stuff I'd have them wiping down chairs and stripping machines and stuff like that. And slowly but surely, like percentage-wise, they were taking over kind of the stuff I was doing, and I was just hovering and making sure things were safe, reacting, problems with cannulation, troubleshooting machines, things like this. I loved it. I never had any difficulty with it at all, even if it was a student that, some people would say like, oh, they're slow, something like that. I just saw it as extra help. And another thing that back in the day, and I still believe this today, Richard, maybe you can speak to this, maybe some of the others can speak to this. Ruben, if you're still on with us, does it help? One, we're short, right? In a lot of facilities. Does it help to take that 10%, but maybe it's still 100%, but now you still have 2 more eyes on the floor that can see things, that are trained to see things, maybe can't react to them yet, but can at least let you know. Is that a problem in today's facilities, where are any of you working so short-staffed that just eyes would be good for you?
Well, I in my opinion, I mean, looking at the industry now, and especially in California, and it's probably going to spread because generally things in California kind of migrate across the country, maybe good or bad, who knows? But, with the new rates, the new hourly rates for CHTs and for the administrative staff, and which is good for people to make more money. It's deserving, but we can't raise our, we're not a grocery store. We can't raise the bananas an extra $1.
Yeah.
We get paid what we get paid from Medi-Cal, from Medicare, from some of the contracted services. And so I've heard recently there's been a big push, especially in California, to go, instead of 4-to-1, 5-to-1 for CHTs and 15-to-1 for nurses. And
what are you guys doing out there? Anybody who's on with us, what's your ratios in your clinic? Because I know I've talked to people very recently that are beyond 4-to-1. Richard, local to us.
Yeah, I think that's the way of the industry, because where do you get? You have to get some savings from somewhere. I mean, in terms of just, the people, so they're just working harder, and the acuity of the patients is worse. They didn't come in with 3 or 4 different things. They've got 10 now of, whatever besides hypertension, diabetes. They've got, lupus and all these different kind of side things that we have to deal with and have to learn. It's a tough business now, and we're required to give more now. We're having to answer more questions in EMRs and having to document more stuff. Again, great for the patient. We should have been doing this a long time ago, but we are limited in what we can do from an industry just with the people we have. I mean, we can't raise our rates. We can, But the insurance company's going to say, okay, well, and this just literally happened the other day. I got a letter from a hospital locally, says we're not accepting these patients. That if you have this insurance, go somewhere else.
Oh, wow. So you guys were trying to discharge and you couldn't send them to a specific hospital because of their insurance?
It was just a letter from me just saying if you have whatever, I'm making up the insurance, but if you have Cigna, we're no longer accepting Cigna patients at this hospital.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with dialysis. It was just
the rate wasn't competitive enough for them.
I guess they're not. Yeah. So they're starting to ship patients that have that insurance to certain clinics that they may have a better contract for them instead of paying them whatever the number is, $500 a treatment. They got somebody down the street that's going to give, they only have to pay $350, so they're going to funnel all their patients to them. Now, do they really care about the care of the patient? Do they look at the numbers? Do they care that their patients are in and out of the hospital? I don't even know they really even look at that stuff.
Yeah. So let's think a little bit more. 15 years in-center hemodialysis, it's still probably somewhere around 85%-ish of the dialysis treatments in the country are happening in these centers. When we look at least on the outpatient level, right? When we look at the rest, they're kind of divided between home treatments of hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis. We're also seeing a shift from the outpatient setting on a certain subsegment of patients that are residing in skilled nursing facilities as their home, and then dialysis operators taking dialysis into the skilled nursing facility in coordination with the care of the skilled nursing facility to give treatment either in the bedsides, like here in California, which there's no other choice, right? They can't do den settings where they put multiple machines in a room, or in pretty much any other state where they do like a den setting where they typically would try and roll some of the patients into that room or move them into that room for their dialysis treatment and then take them back to their room. Now, what does that do? You were talking a little bit about reimbursement and cost of care and things like this. It avoids transportation costs, right? And a lot of times there are nuances around transportation and being on time, and sometimes patients don't show up on time and miss treatments and end up with complications as a result, like even hospitalization, which from the insurance side of things, it spikes up the cost of care. With that, kind of that change of the care setting to some of these patients being dialyzed in the skilled nursing facility, we're seeing dialysis technicians in a new care environment. So dialysis techs were primarily in the environment. Our natural habitat is the chronic facility, right? With people that know dialysis, like nephrologists and dialysis nurses and renal dietitians and licensed clinical social workers and other dialysis techs and biomeds. In a skilled nursing setting, that's quite different, isn't it?
Absolutely. You're more of it's kind of a one-on-one, or you're taking care of a patient, and then the nurse at the skilled nursing facility is actually your supervisor, kind of being the nurse of what's happening. And yeah, it's a different setting, and you don't have the same water systems, and you're dealing with different machinery, whatever that is. And one of the things I was going to mention, because this just happened to me yesterday, we're trying to develop a program in New Orleans right now, and one of the biggest challenges is shipping costs and supplies, and the room that it requires for various machinery. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be Tableau, it could be, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to probably even give, but all the home machinery, you're going to have boxes of supplies, and a lot of these people have these limited homes, apartments, condos, that cannot keep a month's worth of supplies, which is fine. So the companies say, okay, well, we can ship every 2 weeks, but with shipping costs now, containers used to cost us, we used to ship containers for, $8,000 to Guam. Now it's $25,000. The cost of supplies and shipping is just
takes you out of the game, Takes you completely out of the game.
So what the comment was basically was, we have patients that really want to go home, but for a facility, it's not cost effective because we're having to pay all these extra fees to the companies to ship. And especially like an area like New Orleans where you have hurricanes that happen.
Yeah.
And so you have to keep extra supplies just as a backup, but they don't have any room. So now you have to keep them somewhere else. And so you have stuff sitting there that's just basically a backup, but then you have to figure out how to get it to their home.
Yeah.
And home is supposed to be, within a certain area. You could have patients that are 2 hours away. And how do you get, in terms of an emergency
the logistics
supply,
of this it makes it tough. Yeah, you're right. So what do you see as the future of the dialysis tech in these care settings? I mean, we are seeing dialysis techs working in skilled nursing facilities. I think my point of the new habitat is it's not just people who know dialysis anymore, and it's not just people who need dialysis. I mean, if you go do dialysis in a nursing home, you're with MedPass nurse, you're with CNAs that are passing out lunches. You have with activities department are holding different sort of events. They might be having mass or something next door, or some sort of religious observation in the activities room. You got families in and out of the facility. You've got different sort of specialists that are doing rounds. You've got patients in and out for different sort of appointments. So it's quite complex. And again, when I say dipping your toe into the ocean, I really feel that way as far as the outlook for dialysis techs is the ocean's just getting bigger and bigger. It used to be like, oh, you want to be a dialysis tech? You're working in the dialysis center or the hospital helping nurses, right? Now we're working in nursing homes. Now we had one of our former students and a guest on the podcast that she actually opened a company that does concierge home dialysis. Yeah, Luz Lopez, right? So she actually does dialysis on a one-on-one basis, like a caregiver, but for basically affluent patients. Now, segue into, Richard, and anybody else out there, it's not so traditional to see techs giving treatment at home. This is a concierge basis that I just brought up. But do you see a horizon of any sort of payer, whether it be Medicare, Medi-Cal, Medicare Advantage plans, commercial plans, employer-based, whatever, actually paying for care at home? Not you doing your care at home, but me coming to give you care at home, for example. Anybody see that happening, participating? Richard, do you see that in any of the big organizations or the conferences? Talk about this or execution?
Yeah, I think we briefly spoke about it recently, and I think part of it, and I actually asked you, about training even caretakers, not even so much just
not the professional
dialysis technicians, but just trying to help patients. But I think there's a certain aspect of insurance companies that probably would pay for it, not having to deal with transportation or but it's probably few and far between. I personally know somebody that I've known for 40 years. She's currently still on Next Stage, and she pays for somebody to come in out of her own pocket.
Yeah.
She's not,
so like the concierge type of thing that we talked about. Yeah.
But I don't see that the insurance companies, because they'll just go back and say, just figure it out. Here's your payment, and we don't care how you get it done, but get it done.
Well, I'll tell you
I don't
that
mean to be cold about that.
There are examples of execution across the country. So just kind of trying to paint the environment for those that are techs right now or those that are thinking about it, that, there's movement, there's initiative to actually find a mechanism of reimbursement. There has been payers that are willing to pay for techs to go to maybe a certain criteria of patient to go to their home, deliver their treatments. And again, it's happened in states across the country, maybe coming to a state near you. But I would just, when I think about when you started, Richard, and where we're at now as far as the opportunities, I saw Omar jumped on a little bit ago. He's worked in clinics like nocturnal clinics as well. It's not just the same old song and dance, right? We're seeing different modalities. We're seeing different care settings. We're seeing new technologies that are actually becoming much easier than when Richard started or when I started. Like you actually had to have a lot of stuff locked in your brain about what you learned and what you're remembering. And today the devices are starting to become, do the majority of the thinking for us, and really almost automate most of the process or streamline or prevent error, things like this. So the usability is really, really, really going up. But I don't know about you, Richard. I'm excited about that for the profession itself, that as it goes out to other care settings, for any of you guys that are techs again or thinking about it, like is it a different now skill set? Like techs that, and I have my answer, but I'm curious from your guys' angle, techs that have been traditionally trained to work in centers that are now being trained to possibly work in skilled nursing facilities as well, or maybe even eventually work in home programs. Like, is it a different training in your eyes? Do you guys see that on a rudimentary level, technician curriculum needs to look different today than it did in the past? Or is it still kind of the same status quo as far as the education that is required?
From my perspective, and you're exactly right, I kind of get locked into California because that's where I'm at, obviously. But there are states that are definitely doing other things, and obviously they're paying more than what we pay in California. So that's just a whole different thing. But it's a mindset, Michael, because you look at it and you say, look, I'm here with 4 or 5 technicians. I got 2 nurses on the floor. I got 20 stations. If you're on a one-on-one situation with a patient, does that require a separate skill set that I have to be able, like in an emergency, can I handle that patient by myself?
Yeah.
Have I been trained, or do I rely on my other teammates that I'm with to help me in that situation? And how would I react as a loner by myself in a situation compared to having other people?
Man,
so maybe,
I think I have a little bit of an answer just before you finish this for that. Is when I was growing up with my uncle, the first thing I learned how to do was dial 911 because he delivered the care himself, and it was kind of like, well, somebody has to be there. Oh, you're going to be there. I didn't do shit at first, right? I just sat there and got him his orange juice, which was the only day he could drink. Half a glass of orange juice was right in the beginning of his treatment, and get him some Cheetos. He would eat junk food while he was on the machine, right? But I didn't do anything except for like, okay, you know how to call 911 in case, something happens, right? He passes out. He tells you to call 911, call 911, right? And I think first response is, kind of like the most common sense. But me and you, I think, would be very comfortable in any emergency because we know that, right? We know like there's certain things you can do. There's certain things you do as the first response. And then, you're basically waiting on relief from that point, yeah?
Yeah, so let me ask you a question. You've been in that situation. You've been with other people on the floor, and there's an emergency situation somewhere, and you always look at that one person that just kind of goes to the corner and folds up like a cheap suit.
Yeah.
And so would you want that person that's being one-on-one? So what is the training? How would you know how that person would react to it?
Well, that's why I asked. I think that's one angle of it. You're absolutely right. There are people that just in the face of adversity, their reaction is to flight, right? It's not fight. It's not to address it. It's to like just take off, right? The other side of it that like I think about is 4 to 6 months of training for dialysis techs or internal training on whatever that number of weeks or months is, right? Do we learn how to interact with care teams like skilled nursing facility teams and multiple specialists? We kind of learn how to document, and we're in our little like we got some blinders on somewhat. So like change of condition as a whole, not just change of condition related to dialysis, right? Family members coming in, wanderers, fall risk, all those sort of things, right, are things that you have to learn about when you're in a skilled nursing facility. And then, like, I don't know about you guys, but when you invite people to your house, like, some people are like, hey, shoes, right? Shoes are at the door.
Yeah.
And then
Watch the wood floors or the shoes.
yeah, and some people
Whatever.
are like, well, I don't do that. No. But like, are you a guest in a home? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's one of the areas, and one of the areas that we address here at Dialysis Education Services as well, is kind of knowing the environment and how to adapt to the environment. Like shoes, hey, you see shoes at the door, you better like be taking them off and making it very clear that you're respecting the household, right? I remember some of the staff-assisted mobile programs like in the 80s, which I was very young, but I saw because of my aunt was a nephrology nurse that ran one. And there was just weird stuff that happened in people's homes, Richard. I can't wait till we can get some people that are going into homes for dialysis on this podcast to find out what exactly happens when you do staff-assisted home dialysis. So I'll give you an example. Is truck driver came back and said, I'm not going, or van driver, I'm not going back to so-and-so's house. I can't do treatments there anymore. Is my aunt who was the admin, why not? Well, because Mr. So-and-so smokes pot through the entire treatment, and I'm like high as a kite, right? Sitting there inhaling the secondhand smoke, right? Another person that wanted to like sit nude. I don't know. Richard, do you think that, or anybody else, do you think that we're all willing to go out to the people's homes as well? Are there places that people won't go? Are there places that people shouldn't go?
Well, I think you have to have a mindset, and there's, you may go into neighborhoods that are not very good. You may have varmints or roaches or ants or just the environment. You just never know what you're going to get into. And I think no matter what, you have to be able to, in this environment, be able to do everything. I've had people that have thrown up and people, again, running into the corner. They don't want to deal with the cleanup, or people that defecate on themselves. Okay, well, I got to go clean it up. It doesn't bother me, but other people are just like, oh no, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
And so how do you train somebody for that? I don't know. I mean, you're going to have to, I think you just have to have a certain mindset to be in this industry. And matter of fact, I think, maybe they should get paid more for doing that, because they're kind of a one-on-one, and you have to deal with all scenarios. And
it's much more therapeutic, right? Yeah, I agree. It's got a much bigger demand as far as the responsibility level and the social and emotional intelligence that you need, situational intelligence. Like I said, knowing, maybe you're walking up to a house and thinking about where we're going, and like, who's not on dialysis right now, on home dialysis, that having staff assisted would really open the doors. Like, I'm going to say it, African American and Hispanics. And then when you go into those neighborhoods, like I think about like some of my neighborhoods growing up, like especially in my young adult life, pit bulls in every yard, and people doing crazy stuff in the neighborhood and stuff like that. So it could be, I think there's a strong positive on opening that up and seeing, staff assisted, but I think there's also some things that need to be thought out from the rudimentary level of, they're certified techs, but they also need to have some exposure to home health and, what goes into entering an individual's home, if that makes sense.
They need to have experience in life. That's all. It's just basically, life is life. And, you have to, the bottom line is you're taking care of somebody, and you're taking care of their life, and they need the treatment. And so if you sign up for it, you're going to get, if you work hard, you're going to get paid well eventually, and you're taking care of somebody's life. And I still remember the first patient I took care of that allowed me to stick him at 15 years old, and he was an IRS agent. Oh, wow. And I still remember his name to this day. And you have to just be passionate about what you do and really care. This is not, and again, Mike, me and you have talked about this. I mean, the younger generation now is just, they want $100,000 out of the gate and not work hard for it. And this is not the position. But if you really want to work hard for something, this is a great field to get in and get to a good school.
Yep.
And be able to be trained correctly with a good reputation, and just get into it and do it. And there's a lot of avenues to this job. It's not just being a technician. There, like I've said earlier, and you said it branches out into all kinds of ideas. And I want this new blood in here. I want people to get into it, because we need that for people to look at stuff and be able to start to, there's new things out there. There's now AI and all this other stuff that the younger generation knows about.
Yeah.
And I'm too old to learn anything new. I can barely,
I'm shaking my head. I shouldn't be shaking my head like, yeah, but no, I get it. I mean, you're right. You and I were in that group, right? Of like the young people that are in the room that, the big eyes and the green ears or whatever you want, wet behind the ears. And somebody showed us the way, like, hey, today they're looking at you, Richard, like, hey, he's the vice president. He's done this, 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 and this. I want that, right? But we got to tell our stories, because like one thing I feel about the nephrology or dialysis industry specifically is that I feel like we're not replacing the subject matter experts, the thought leaders fast enough. I feel like we're finding a lot of people that are like, I'm going to be here for a while. So whenever I get the chance and I find somebody that has that passion for a reason, I'm all about it. And I know you are as well. 15 years, guys, has been a great journey. We're about to celebrate that together. And I want to thank you, Richard, for joining us tonight. Everybody else who's tapped in. The musings for this evening is really that it's been an uphill battle with quite a few roller coaster valleys in it as well. Some of those we shared just a tease of it with Richard. And yeah, we'll definitely tell the story. I'd love to hear more on your side, Richard. But we faced a lot of up and downs in the last 15 years. But when I look back at it, and to the point of what we talked about earlier, like pain and trauma and decisions that, sometimes like that was a kind of a bad experience, for me. Like it hurt, right, Richard? Like you knew it hurt me. Like I was like, I couldn't make sense of it, right? And I was angry, and I wanted to fight. You know what I mean? But in hindsight, like I got through that. I made it through just fine, and it taught me a lot, and it gave me a great friend, that I know is going to always tell me the truth, even when it's that, you don't have to cut this one out, Paco, but even when it's I'm being an asshole, you'll tell me straight out, like, and I need that, right? We all need that, right? See something. Say something if you give a shit about the person that you're seeing go through it. And Richard, you've done that in more than that occasion. We can definitely get into those as well, because life is that, right? Life is up and down. You'll go through the good, you'll go through the bad, and hopefully you can keep the same emotion on both sides. Like, don't get too excited either side of it, right? Because you can kill yourself. I'm not talking literally, but you can kind of like get yourself to Death Valley by soaking in what you see as a loss. And sometimes, loss is okay as long as you don't take defeat, right? Take the lesson, right? And then sometimes you can get so hyped up on yourself when you have victories that you forget that there's about to be a valley in your pathway again as well. But, I want to thank all of you who are with us and end with this, that 15 years ago, there was a very small community that built this business. And the community's very big now. It's very big. When we look at the network of Dialysis Education Services, we've helped companies across the country, thousands of dialysis techs, nurses, and others. We want to continue to build that community and tighten it up. Because what we've found out recently, and as per Richard's testimony here, a lot of people, the way they get into this and they kind of sink their feet into the dirt, it's because they got some sort of skin in the game. Like it's affected them somehow. Whether it's family, themselves, friends, something like that. So I'm going to ask for the first favor that I can from everybody who is on with us right now or who watches us is we have a great YouTube following. Our YouTube family, very strong. Socially, we want to push those communities as well so we can have conversations in between our podcasts. Right. So we can go to your events and you can come to our events so we can celebrate your victories and help you with the challenges and vice versa. We need some help sometimes too, right? So we do have a social media handle on all of the socials, so TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, as well as YouTube. You just look up Musings with Morales and you'll find those. Please do us a favor. If you're not already following, if you're on those platforms, make sure that you get over there, that you become one of our friends or our acquaintances on there, that you like some of the posts, that you comment on us, that you give us feedback, that you give us critique. And we can take critique, guys. It doesn't have to be good all the time. If you got to say, Morales, you said 35 times during that thing, please get in there. Omar is chiming in here. I went from tech to facility administrator with education he got at DES. So again, we want people to hear that story, Omar. Richard, we want people to hear your story. And if you guys are open to it, making your own network with each other. Like, you're our friend, Richard. Omar's our friend. We want you guys to be friends. We want you guys to be able to call on each other and mentor each other and say, hey, have you heard about supplies that are short over here? We're running short on us. What are you guys doing about it? And just be able to call on each other as a community. So again, if you're not already, please follow, like, comment, share the social medias. Let's build this community together. Let's tighten it up together, and I'll see you all at the 15th anniversary. Richard, any last words for us tonight?
Yeah, just real quick, Mike, and congratulations again on 15 years.
Thank you.
Never thought you'd make it the first year, being the person you were. But that's, I love it. But all I want to say to whoever follows or whatever, Mike and I are at a lot of the nephrology meetings, and if you just see me somewhere and you want to have a conversation, or Mike, we're always willing to talk, because again, we're in the industry for a long time, but a lot of newbies and they're afraid to talk, but we're easy to talk to. Just come and talk to us. We have some upcoming meetings that we'll both be at, and just come and say hello. And if you have a question, just talk. And Mike, if you want to, you can always reach out to Mike and they can get in touch with me. Paco has my email, or whoever, somebody can find me. I'm not hard to find. So.
And Richard has the link, the forever link to.
He knows how to get in on the podcast anytime now. So
no, that may be a problem, but no. I try to let you guys do your thing. I don't want to.
No, hey, we appreciate your support, Richard. I got to tell you, Richard messaged me on Sunday. It was like, hey, are you on tonight? I'm ready to talk. I was like, dude, it's on Wednesday.
I was fired up about something. Yeah, I don't even know what I was fired up about, but I was fired up. Yeah.
But that's what that kind of triggered my thought of the community, Richard. Is like, we're over a half year into the podcast now, and we're hearing from people like, hey, I watch you every Wednesday, or I play it every Monday morning at 7:30. We release edited versions, right? And they're expecting it. It's becoming a part of the weekly conversations, right? And the weekly affirmations, and some people are telling us like, hey, I needed to hear that today. We need to hear it too, guys. So to the point of making that connection, Richard, and everybody else, we see regularly. We see Ruben Maldonado on here. If it's possible, Ruben, there may be people that want to get mentorship and hear your story. Omar, as a facility administrator, same thing, and he's done a lot of discussions with some of our students and been on the podcast a couple of times. So, we really want to just tighten that community up. Nurse Jay, same thing. If we can just get you guys all together in a way that when it comes time that I need a PD nurse, I know Nurse Jay, right? When it comes time that I need somebody who knows transitional care, I know Myrna, right? When it comes time that I need somebody who's an expert in hospice, I know Joe. That's what Musings with Morales is about is one, sharing the stories and the expertise and of both sides of the story in this care continuum, but two, to create the community that we all can call on each other and help to really drive what we're all about, which is patient first, right? Outcomes for the people that we serve, and that we're so privileged to actually earn a living in doing so. Guys, thank you so much for following us.
Thank you.
I want to.
Bye, Paco.
Bye.
Again, I want to sign out for everybody. Thank Richard Van Der Plas for being on, Ruben and Omar and everybody else who's joined in with us tonight. Nurse Jay and who's that over in LB3 Custom Engravings, who actually did our coasters and the engraving on the cups. Thank you so much for that. It was great work, and looking forward to actually getting some of those for Richard. You're going to have to get a glass, so we're going to be ordering some of those real soon so we can gift our
I need
guests.
some products for my patients, so I've been looking for somebody. So if they're willing to do something, I can definitely have a conversation.
All right, reach out. LB Custom, is it LB? No, that's IB. Sorry. Yeah, reach out. My old eyes, huh? All right, guys, you have a great evening, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Take care.
This episode has been brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.